Okay, so I'm back. Look, at this point, don't even worry about me. I'm literally an enigma in my own existence, right? I literally just shapeshift in and out of my life, shapeshift in and out of YouTube at this point. But yeah, I'm back, and I'm back with an artist we haven't done in a hell of a long time, and this is Ren. This one's called Vincent's Tale, The Bedroom. I'm assuming that this is following on from Screech, Jenny, and Violet's Tale. It's quite a lengthy video, but as you know, with Ren, they usually are, and it's awesome because he follows on like some sort of story, which is great. Those ones were absolutely brilliant. The trilogy, I'm assuming that this follows on. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just obviously speculating over here. But yeah, let's see what we've got over here, man. This is Ren, Vincent's Tale, The Bedroom. Let's see what we got. Let's go. We have to put our brains on again. You gotta put your brain on for Ren. Has to happen. Prison cells looking mighty fine these days. That thing purr.
Anger. Have you ever felt anger with nowhere to place it? Vincent felt cold, neglected and jaded, impotent, empathy castrated. Look for the new thing, always look for the new thing, but never look inside, never look within, without, above, below, same thing. Wait, it gets deeper than that.
That's actually very clever because, okay, firstly, starting with the guitar solo, obviously, as you know, in this channel, we never pause on guitar solos. That over there is quite clever. Also, with the jail cell is brilliant. So he's playing the past and present there very cleverly, right? So it's literally, so he's going the past, present, or even future in terms of where it leads. So I kind of feel it's like he's playing in the kid's bedroom that he feels neglected. So it starts from somewhere, right? And then it eventually gets to a point where, you know, he lands up somewhere. So there's consequence for the action, but where did the action come from? It actually came from something. It came from environmental situations that the kid was literally, dealt with. Well, he was dealt when he was younger, right? So it starts from when he was a childhood, and that literally has a progression through into his adulthood, which lands him up in prison. So what he's doing over here is he's putting the bedroom where it all started in the prison where it all ends, which is very, very fucking clever, right? What he said over here, which is quite smart with in terms of like the new thing, that's kind of speaking to distraction. So sort of when you are suffering with mental illness, when you are suffering with depression and things like that, you look for vices. So you look for a shiny thing that can take you momentarily out of those sort of like those depressive states, essentially. So you're always looking for a shiny new thing, but never dealing with the crux of the problem, is basically what he's dealing with, what he's saying there.
Within, without, above, below, same thing. Wait, it gets deeper than that. The insane thing is sane men living in insane terrain, contorting insane brains that are kind of deranged, strange, without the factor of cause and effect. Factually, the man's a casualty of constant neglect. Let's start at the start. Vincent was born in the dark, home birth to a mother, painted scars on her arm. Track march from the dragon, China white in the palm. Shooting up the birth canal, Vinny fell out like yarn. Tumbled out, himself unraveling, and that was the thing. Exceptionally average grade, sprayed with low self-esteem.
So I'm really gonna not try not to pause this, but you know, there is so much depth in Ren's lyrics, the layers, his writing ability, his pen game is frighteningly good, specifically when he, actually always, but when he does this tale where he's literally he's constructing a narrative across a thematic sort of treatment. He is so fucking good at tying in those words so cleverly, where he actually, it's different where there's certain artists, and specifically in today's day and age, you have artists that just say things plainly, but they are meant to be said plainly, right? So it's literally, it's just there's nothing that you dig deeper. The way words are very important in terms of how it opens up imagination, right? The way your linguistic construction is what literally opens up a story. And this is what Ren does really well. It's the way he constructs his words and builds a picture in your brain. It's really true artistry at this. And speaking of true artistry, don't think I didn't notice the picture on the wall over there. We'll get to that in a bit.
From the fire to the frying pan, painting it green. When it's the cash that rules everything around me. Cream, get the money, funny bin. He weren't ever good at hustling, shitty jobs that he was dead and stocking started, no combustion, nothing.
I hate fucking pausing, but I love the way he literally tied in the monetary, the thing that actually feeds you, which is the money, the need for it, the need for money, and then he ties in the cream, which is the cream with money and cream being the cooking cream, but then he ties the whole thing into the pan, right? So like the entire thing, he's also playing with the green not being, it's kind of like being corroded as well, and then also the green in the pan and the food and what feeds you and what nourishes you, but then being nourished by money, but that becomes toxic essentially. So playing that entire scheme is absolutely fucking brilliant. Anyway, carry on.
Pulled him out of debt, the debt collector's rushing to be stripping him of everything. Eventually, there's nothing. The cycle is a cycle for a psychopath on ice. The day repeats, the days are weeks, the weeks are most your life. When the day's done, it's the same one. It's a repeat, it's a rerun. A deja vu religion, a foreboding of a prison. Whole Britain, Great Britain.
The very, very clever way in terms of how he plays the prison, in terms of not only being in prison eventually because of the cascading effects of what happened from your childhood into your adulthood, and then that need for that green, and then a desperate man will do absolutely anything. So when he's in debt and when his life is in turmoil, he needs to chase something at all of the time, which creates that space for creating bad decisions, which then puts you in that prison. But then he also speaks of that prison in terms of living the same day again and again and again. And everybody knows the feeling of that. Everybody knows the feeling of feel like you're sort of mincing water. You're just trading. You're just not getting anywhere. You're living that same life the same day again and again and again and again and again. It doesn't feel like you're moving anywhere, right? And the longer you are in that state, the more sort of like fatigue you get mentally, which then sort of gets into a depressive state, which is very clever, right? So if you had to play into like the physical sort of metaphorical space, you'd literally say treading water, physically fatigued, but here is mentally fatigued, living that same life again and again and again, just doing that same motion. Eventually you get tired and you drown. Okay, very cool, very clever.
Foreboding of a prison, whole Britain, Great Britain, how Britannia ruled the wave. We started out with intentions and we ended up like slaves. Drink to kill the tension, but the drinks cost your wage. What helps you is what kills you when you're living to decay.
Fire, what helps you is what kills you when you're living to decay is so fucking clever. Also where he plays on the Britain in terms of saying what actually happened. We started off with good intentions, right? And we were villains at a certain point, and then we started off with good intentions where we say, okay, we do need to end slavery, and then we landed up like slaves, right? Just in a different sort of way in terms of like how far have we decayed. And that's not just Britain, that's the entire fucking world, right? Because of that cycle that he's going on about, right? It starts from somewhere, and it feels like we're creating more and more and more and more of that cycle today because we are focused on many other things as opposed to what's the most important, that should be most important to us, is literally our families, our health, our children, and that kind of thing. We don't care about people like that. We've kind of been dehumanized for profit, for money, right? Carry on.
When you're living too deep.
And that's a ripple effect that goes down. So everyone sort of eventually gets to that point where everybody needs a vice. And then they also sell you the vice. Not only. They create the sickness and sell you the vice down the road as well.
And so it goes. Vinny starts to drink to let go. Soon he's drinking, cause when he don't drink, every day is a day on death row. So we drink so we don't have to think. Mercy.
Brilliant.
Taste bittersweet. When the spirit that's inside of him sinks in his teeth. And the months turn over, May to October. More days pissed than the days he spent sober. Skin looks older, demeanor gets colder. Sledgehammer swing to that chip on your shoulder. A cold prison deep in...
That's literally the see again, absolutely brilliant writing over there. Sledgehammer swing to that chip on your shoulder. Essentially, it's literally reality setting in, right? Reality setting in and unraveling itself from all of the bad decisions that you've made and slapping you in the face, essentially, is basically what he's saying. You build that ego, right? Which is often very much built up and by your, again, it's environmental, it's things that happen, and it's you kind of shield yourself. So you create this mask, you create this armor because of all the pain that you've experienced in your life, and then with that comes an ego that protects all of that. It like shields all of that, and then at some point, literally, he's talking about the chip on your shoulder, but at some point reality comes and shatters all of that, and you feel exposed and vulnerable, which is very fucking clever. Now, let's talk about this painting that's sitting on that wall, which is very clever. Very, very, very smart choice over there, because that's a portrait of Van Gogh himself. Van Gogh, however you want to pronounce his name. That's a portrait of himself. Now, for those of you who know, he suffered from mental health as well. But the one thing about Van Gogh is he never romanticized his mental health in any of his pictures. He literally just painted the portraits, and you bought portraits or any other of his art and whatever else, and you used your own imagination and created the perspective for yourself. But that over there, that particular one is of him, right? And he literally suffered with depression, right? He suffered with that, and he never romanticized any of that. He literally created that and put that out. We actually, if you actually think about it, we were the ones that glorified that. We were the ones that romanticized it after the fact. He kept it quiet. And very much like that, it ties into this whole Vinny's tale, right? Where it's an internal battle. So he's constantly in this prison cell. It's quite funny that Van Gogh's in it as well, because he went through the same exact thing. And Van Gogh put it in his art, right? Because pain creates art to a certain degree, and it comes out in certain forms. Now, it can come out in a good form like Van Gogh did, or it can come out in a violent form, essentially, or it can come out in a very toxic form, essentially, where I kind of feel this is where he's going. It's kind of come out in like a violent aspect over here in Vinny's case, because he is actually in prison, essentially. But it's the same exact thing. It's that neglect. It's that not being seen, right? And Van Gogh's sort of channel of release was his art form, which is he did his paintings. Vinny's channel of release is all that he knew was what he did. It was kind of his masterpiece was to do the terrible things that he did that landed him up in prison, essentially. It doesn't mean that they bad people. It just means that they literally had a lot of trauma growing up and a lot of neglect growing up that eventually led them down this path. Some people can go down a good path. Some people will go down a bad path based on their environment. We're all different, essentially. That was a very sort of disjointed dichotomy, but hopefully you understood that.
I'ma swing to that chip on your shoulder. A cold prison deep in alcoholism. 40% proof, no juice. Inhibition get loose by decision and taboos. When we're living for the booze, who's who he lose himself to? 1, 2, many 1, 2, 3 shots down.
Just brilliant wordplay. Who's who he lose himself to? 1, 2. So having another talking about the rounds, right? Who's who? 1, 2. Essentially, so it's kind of like him being different people under the intoxication of alcohol because of the 1, 2. So it's a 1, 2, 1, 2. You know what I mean? Being different under how many sort of shots of drinks you take. You know what I mean? Very clever, very, very smart writing.
1, 2, 3 shots down. Drown those sorrows up in London town. If we in for a penny, we in for a pound. Fate comes full circle. Now it's Vinny boys round.
Wow. Very clever. I think Van Gogh also painted that. So okay, wait a second. Now we're going into something else. Now we're going into Richard's Tale. Okay.
Sirens start singing as the screws murder silence. Stand on my Miranda, my right to remain violent. One man's resistance is another man's tyrant. When tyrants make the law, they go to war with...
Brilliant. One man's resistance is another man's tyrant. Okay, brilliant. I like that play over there, right? Because everyone believes that they're fighting for something. You know what I mean? So that it's also it's their way of justifying something. So they'll say, okay, that's a tyrant. And also the dichotomy is quite clever over here, because you can literally say the police can also be the tyrant, right? We tend to see the police as like this law-abiding authority, like authority figure that is here to help everybody, essentially. But that also is very system-based in terms of how that's all being created. It's very sort of uniform. You put a man in uniform. It's the same thing like the military, right? So it's like if you see a guy with an AK-47 and a fucking hijab on his head, and they play that sort of propaganda in the thing. They say that's terror, that's barbarism, that's all, that's it's the worst of the worst, right? But what they're trying to also do, not to say that that's a good thing, obviously not, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to take away from the fact where they say, okay, now we got to create a whole different propaganda world, right, where we sell mass murder, right? But we got to do it in a way that we don't look like the barbarians, right? So we build cool stuff. We build F-15s, we build F-22s, we build really cool military equipment, and then we create words that literally sit well with people. We construct these linguistic acrobatic words where it's like collateral damage, it's not just the murder of just people, right? With like literally sophisticated weapons that can eviscerate an entire fucking block of people and have concrete fall on people. No. We don't want to use those words, because then that makes us look like the tyrant, that makes us look bad, right? So we literally construct an entire system where we clean it up. We clean it all up, and therefore, right, shooting someone with an AK-47 in an act of terrorism, that's the most barbaric. But dropping a bomb on a building where it's housing fucking 200 children and women, that's just collateral damage. That had to be done. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like how they paint the tyrant to the villain, and how they paint the tyrant to the hero, and how that can be flipped, and why aren't we seeing it that way as well? You know what I mean? Anyway, carry on.
Singing as the screws murder silence. Stand on my Miranda, my right to remain violent. One man's resistance is another man's tyrant. When tyrants make the law, they go to war with non-compliance. Locked up, Vinny been locked up since his mother knocked up.
That is fucking crazy, because it played into my whole dichotomy of the fucking military thing, where it's like when tyrants make the law, they go to war with no compliance, right? Nothing holds them to account, because they created the law. They can get away with anything. Fucking brilliant. Brilliant. I'm so glad that he actually said that afterwards, because it plays straight into my military thing. On my life, on my child's life. I've never watched this fucking video before this. It just, for somehow odd reason, he literally connected that to the whole fucking wars thing that I actually did. Literally brilliant, because that's what I was trying to say. He just said it in better fucking words and in a lot more concisely than I did.
To war with non-compliance. Locked up, Vinny been locked up since his mother knocked up. Keep the group up fast, pull this socks up. Chop, keep that credit topped up. Time is money, tick tock. Quantify the price upon your soul, and then it's chop shop. Not particularly special, Vinny spent his life a vessel for the musings of the devil. Repetition caused some issues, turned a hide into a jackal, building pressure in.
Okay, so he's saying, so Vinny spent his life a vessel, right, for the musings of the devil, essentially. I'm not entirely sure if Richard is his dad now. I'm not entirely sure if he's trying to paint that to his dad, essentially. I don't know who this dad figure is, but I'm not entirely sure if that's what he's trying to connect, but obviously saying he was a vessel for the musings of his devil, right? Because obviously he came from something. Essentially, it came from either an abusive family, a neglected family, and shit like that. And then literally he became the vessel for the musings of the devil because he was created in that manner by the people who actually gave birth to him, essentially is what he's trying to say. But anyway, let's just carry on.
Repetition caused some issues, turned the hide into a jackal, building pressure in the kettle, bubble up to boiling level. Ooh.
Also fucking brilliant over there, turn a hide into a kettle. So you're kind of reversing. Basically what he's trying to say over there, very, very clever, is literally saying we've all got good and bad within us, right? We both have the capacity, every one of us have got the capacity to be a Mother Teresa or to be a Hitler, right? So that can flip, and it all comes down to sort of nurturing. It comes down to, or the lack of nurturing rather, it comes down to environmental situations, comes down to abuse, it comes down to neglect. You could be a good person, you could be Jekyll and Hyde. Who was the good person? I don't know. I think Hyde was the good person, Jekyll was the bad person. But essentially, it's like you could be born a Hyde, but they can turn you to a Jekyll. It really depends on how you were brought up, right? And it's those fundamental, sort of formative years that were so important that you couldn't be neglected, that you needed the guidance, that you needed the father figure there, you needed a stable home, and they didn't have any of that. And that literally then bred you into what you are today. And even though you were a Jekyll, you were turned into a Hyde, or if you were a Hyde, you were turned into a Jekyll. It's kind of saying we have both, we have the capacity for both, and we also have the capacity to switch between, dependent on how our sort of life and environment goes.
Cause some issues, turned the hide into a jackal, building pressure in the kettle, bubble.
Sorry, I also want to apologize for the pausing. This over here also bubble up to boil level, building the pressure in the kettle is very cool. I like the fact that he used the kettle sort of metaphor over there, because it's actually internal, because the pressure and the water and everything is boiling up internally, right? And then it needs an outlet to come out. So that steam needs to come out eventually, right? So that boils up until it gets to like a fever pitch point, and then there's a snapping point over there, essentially, right? So it's you get to your boiling point, okay?
Up to boiling level, ooh man, he's a mad lad, falling on the warpath. Vinny split the atom like a Nagasaki bloodbath. Skies are raining black ash, copper car lights flash, red and blue kaleidoscope. Some folks don't like that. Never mind, just a victim of society. The one.
Also, Vinny split the atom like a Nagasaki bloodbath, so Vinny became a weapon of mass destruction, right? Again, it's all going back to his upbringing, essentially, to his, what I'm going to say now, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm going to say Richard was his dad, right? And either he was abusive or he neglected him or whatever it is. Either way, that doesn't really make a difference. In terms of neglect is just as much as abuse, right? It can have the same effect on a child being neglected by your parents and where they're never there and whatever else. It's just as much as sort of being abused. So abuse obviously is on the physical aspect of it, but also being neglected and not wanted also takes you down that same alley in the same fucking way, essentially. But playing on the Nagasaki, saying like he literally became he became a weapon of mass destruction himself, but someone created that weapon, right? He became someone's Manhattan Project, right? Even without them knowing it, essentially. They didn't know they were creating a weapon of mass destruction. They just were inadvertently doing that. Just very much like Manhattan Project. Yes, they were building something big, but they only realized the consequence and what that actually meant once they've dropped those two weapons and they eviscerated 100 and something thousand people or whatever it was, right? It's literally the only thought of the consequences after the fact. If they even thought of the consequences in many certain ways, like Truman didn't fucking care about it, right? Who cared about it was Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer realized what he had created and the consequence of that, but then it was now left in the power of the system and in greater hands. They didn't care for the consequence of that. So that's what happens is when you create a weapon of mass destruction, you then therefore are handing it over to a system that makes it worse, right? So he's connecting that massive event in history with the far smaller sort of microcosm of you just being a thug in the street, but it's kind of playing it into the same thing, where now you are played into the system. It's almost like the system has created this person, and not only the system now handles this person, right? If that makes any sense. Anyway, carry on.
That serves you alcohol and sells you your sobriety. The one that sells you sex says it pedestals virginity.
Yeah, it's like he literally said, this is over here, the system that sells you alcohol then sells you your sobriety. I think I said that earlier on with regards to the, I've said this 1,000 times before in other videos as well, in terms of how they sell you the illness and then they sell you the fucking cure, right? That's been happening now for the past fucking 4 decades, right? And this is the exact same thing. This is basically what I've been saying, is that they sell you your sobriety. They create you the way they create you in that manner, and then they sort of sell you the solution. It's like they never had to create that in the first place, but it's not profitable to not do that, right? So he's playing that very, very clever.
Just a victim of society, the one that serves you alcohol and sells you your sobriety, the one that sells you sex says it pedestals virginity, the one where we elect these lying pests with God ability. 1 to the 2 to the 3 to the 1, our boy spun his own web-fed tarantulas come like 9 to the 9 to the 9 through his Christ timelines intersect Richard's fate was designed.
Wait, sorry, just a second here. You guys, 9 to the 9 to the 9 for his crimes. This is, okay, so this is very cryptic, but this is, okay, try to see if you can follow my thinking over here, because this is actually very clever again, just being rare. 9 to the 9 to the 9 for his crimes. The way I actually see that is, I think, okay, 999 is kind of like an emergency call, all right? I think in the UK it's 999, in America it's 911, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, please. I think America's 911, in the UK it's 999. It might be. I might be wrong, or I might not be, but I think it's connected to some sort of emergency something. And then also 9 to the 9 to the 9 for his crime is that he's always going to the nines, right, with his crimes, essentially. So it's basically saying, like, he's causing very violent crimes. He's going to the max, right? You know, when people are going to the nines with something, means that you're literally going to the absolute fucking limit, right? He's going to the max. He also could be playing into, like, so going to the 9 for his crimes in terms of going to the maximum prison, going to the 9s. But I think going to the 9s means is like he's literally reaching the limit with his crimes. So he's going to the 9, and because he's saying 9 to the 9 to the 9, it's multiple crimes and going to the limit with multiple crimes. He's kind of lost control at this point. That's at least what I'm thinking.
9 to the 9 through his Christ timelines intersect Richard's fate was designed. Just set the scene, it's 2019. Richard and a boy named Screech. The hands of fate, they touch and reach. Siblings buried, blood it bleeds. Ashton Richards.
Wait, go back. Paint the scene, okay, he's definitely talking about Screech. Now, Screech was obviously the person who killed Jenny in the trilogy. Okay, so obviously there's a very clear connection to that, okay?
The picture set the scene, it's 2019. Richard and a boy named Screech. The hands of fate, they touch and reach. Siblings buried, blood it.
Okay, so Richard and the boy named Screech. Okay, Richard's the cop. Okay, Richard's the cop, because the boy named Screech, he was shot, if I'm not mistaken. Right, so he was killed by the police. The police is fucking Richard. Okay, fine. Okay, we getting it?
Bleed. Ashton Richards' memory. Force a model, troubled sleep. Takes a time of absently. Hitting the bottle to soften the blow in the water yourself, and there's nowhere to go. When his friends on the force, they don't call, they don't show. Go to therapy, raggedy, seem to plateau.
Okay, wait, so there seems to be a connection over here with Screech and Vincent. Right? Okay, so Vincent, obviously, he's now gone into the slug life. He's been neglected, and now he became friends with Screech, who obviously committed these crimes, and Vincent also committed these kind of crimes and whatever else. And obviously, when you in that state, you it's kind of like the birds of a feather flock together type vibe. So obviously, he finds people, or he gets pulled in by people that are sort of like-minded, essentially. So Screech became one of his friends. It's very much playing into that saying where it's like, show me your friends and I will show you your future, right? So it's literally the people people that you hang around with is what you tend to do. You tend to take on the actions of that crowd, essentially, is what they're playing into over there, right?
When his popo went loco and woe so low that his mojo no mono rebound no yo-yo, and so the time it moved slow-mo. You see the case was never closed cause the motive was confusing. Orphan killed his sister but his sister was removed when the mother died in childbirth, but dying womb life brings. The cycle of samsara always was quite amusing. Brother killed his sister but the record seemed to show the brother never.
Okay, so that's following on the story with Screech and Jenny. They didn't know that they were brother and sister. Okay.
Amusing. Brother killed his sister but the record seemed to show the brother never met his sister, didn't even know. So the tragedy was a catastrophe, a fate fucked up. Richard's losing sleep while his whole family's talk.
Okay, wait, so Richard's losing sleep. So obviously Richard is the cop over here. He's the one who killed the kid, right? So he's the person that killed the kid. And now obviously he's losing sleep because he was just a youngster. And it's kind of like, he didn't want to do that, but he had to do that because he was, obviously it was his job to do that. And obviously Screech was being violent, essentially. And now Screech is Vinny's friend, or Vincent's friend. Okay.
The 5 stages of grief is a common psychological model often used to provide reassurance to all those stricken by loss. For loss comes with a cost like frostbite, shockingly cold, paving the road to decomposure.
God, fucking comes with a cost. Like, it's what was it? Lost soul comes with a cost. Like frostbite, it's shockingly cold. Fire.
The 5 stages of grief is a common psychological model often used to provide reassurance to all those stricken by loss. For loss comes with a cost like frostbite, shockingly cold, paving the road to decomposure, decomposing your soul. 1. Denial, pretending for a while, reality retired, but everything is changing. Richie lost the will to smile, how to reconcile when murdering a child. The 2nd stage is anger, feel it bubbling the bile. Anger, damn the man that served the hand that wrote the plan. If God is will that's good and grand, then damn we are. We all are damn forsaken by creation, revelations. Richard cannot stand. The 3rd stage is bargaining, begging God for second chance. Lord, I know it is a reach, but I'm begging on my knees. Resurrect the boy James, resurrect the boy Screech. I'll devote my life to thee, I will live a life of peace. Stage 4 is depression, that's a lesson taught in grief. Depression, demonic like possession, that feeds upon this spark for life. No water is refreshing, no sunlight brings him warmth, no sleep will ever bring resting. His guilt and doubt are oh so loud, the silence sounds so deafening. Depression, the numbing of expression, the negative obsession, ruminating in oppression. Stressing is a lesson when your mind begins reflecting. That's stage number 5. 5 is acceptance. Souls get shaken up, the road's never quite ideal, but slow rise, dust it off. And let me tell you something, Richie, man, I'm proud, cause you pulled a stitch from the seam, the wound was open weeping. Felt like a regression, but that flesh was set for healing. You wrestled imperfections, misdirections, walked with demons. Most demons are a fallen angel, truth has double meanings. Perspective disconnects the trauma.
Whoa. Most demons are fallen angels. He's tripping me up here in terms of this fucking Richard character, and he's tripping me up on this over here because obviously he's gone for psychological help because he's just shot a child. Essentially, he goes to the 5 stages of grief, 100%, right? But then also when he plays into the law and order, like we were playing into the law of order in terms of the tyrant versus the villain, one man's tyrant and another man's hero, essentially. Right? So if you're playing on that narrative, all of this over here feels very sarcastic to a certain degree, right? This end part feels very sarcastic in terms of like, okay, this is a good person, but I kind of feel like he kind of flipped that over there. Do you know what I mean? But if you're playing it back into like he's the law and order figure, and if you play it back into like the flipping of the Jekyll and Hyde figure, right? I kind of feel like he's flipping both in this video. Or in this song, essentially, he's in the same way that Screech and Vinny, right, were fucking the good person, the Jekyll or the Hyde or whatever else, and they flipped and they became the bad person, the same narrative can be applied to the actual cop, where the cop is actually the bad person, or seen as the bad person as well. And then literally, if you play into that narrative, right, then also you're playing into the fact that the cop also came from that sort of background, which then sort of created... The fucking cop is Vincent's dad. How does that make sense, though? No, it does make sense. It does make sense. Wait a second. Wait. Okay, the cop is Vincent's dad. Okay, that's how I see. And the cop neglected Vincent, right? Which then created Vincent in the way that because he was the vessel for that, right? Now the cop sitting in psychology is not only dealing with the psychological trauma of actually having to kill a child, but also deeper thoughts and deeper emotional trauma or deeper stuff that actually happened from his childhood as well. But also there's a projection level over there in terms of he neglected his kid. Now his kid became the very thing that he's supposed to... Wait, fuck. Okay, wait a second. Wait, this is mind fucking me now at the moment. So his kid was actually a product of Richard, and then Richard then had to go and solve the product that he created, which was literally exactly what plays into they solve the problem, then they solve the solution, essentially. So Richard himself, through neglect, created the monster that then went and engaged with other monsters in the street, which then led to Richard, the system, right, being the hero. Obviously, that's how they paint it. That's how they always do that, is that literally they create that narrative. They propagandize it all. It's like this is a system and it's good for you and things like that, and they're there to protect you. But the very thing that Richard was meant to protect, which was his child, right, and the youth and the innocence, he never did in the very beginning. So he's talking about prevention of, if he had prevented that, if he had been there as a dad, and if he was actually if he never neglected his child, so they're basically saying that this all started from somewhere. And the irony of it all is that in this case, it started from the very man that is supposed to be protecting the innocent was the one that neglected the innocent, that caused it, and then literally land up with the final solution of killing the merry monster that it created. And Richard, oh my God, this is, if that is the actual point of this fucking thing, it is mind-blowing. Absolutely fucking mind-blowing. That's why this over here didn't feel right, essentially. I don't know why there was such an emphasis on this Richard character, and now it's almost like they're building him up again, but that's what the system would do. The system would build him up. So it's literally, you did this, you created this, then you went and shot that. So obviously there's in the natural order of things, you're going to feel that guilt, you're going to feel that depression and whatever else, but the system sold you the solution because you're now part of the system. So the system's going to mold you into something that's going to be okay with that. Go out and do it again, right? So let's get you into debriefing, right? Let's get you feeling better about yourself, even though let's just disregard everything in the past and what actually happened, where all of that could have been prevented, but go out into the streets and do that again, right? So he's kind of wanting to play on the prevention is better than the cure type situation over here, where it's like, if we prevent these kids being neglected like that, if we prevent these kids getting into that life, we're not going to need the fucking cure. You know what I mean? In terms of all this law enforcement. It's okay. If that's the case, it's fucking brilliant.
5 is acceptance.
If I'm right, or else I just went on a whole fucking rant for nothing, for absolutely nothing.
Souls get shaken up. The road's never quite ideal, but slow your eyes, dust it off. And let me tell you something, Richie, man, I'm proud. Cause you pulled a stitch from the seam, the wound was open weeping. Felt like a regression, but that flesh was set for healing. You wrestled imperfections, misdirections, walked with demons. Most demons are a fallen angel, truth has double meanings. Perspective disconnects the trauma, trauma turns to lessons. The biggest curse you'll ever face could be your greatest blessing. Remember, in the darkest times, no need for second guessing. No path is ever linear, a stumble leads to stepping. You're a soldier, a scholar of life's sorrow, and day follows day. There will always be tomorrow when it gets colder. Whatever, it's only weather. Rain feeds the crops, let them grow. Think.
See, this is the super sarcastic part of this video over here. This is literally the system just telling him it's okay. What you've done is okay. And him sort of looking in that mirror is playing back into the beginning of the actual song, where it's kind of like that sort of sledgehammer, chip on the shoulder type vibe, right? So you literally, the system created, they built up this ego, and the shooting of a child, naturally that's going to spark something within you that obviously you immediately, that guilt starts rushing in and whatever else. But the system quickly steps in and says, no, right? You saw yourself for what you really were. You were demonic to do that, to shoot a child, essentially, and that's how you feel about that particular thing. But then the system comes in and reinforces that and creates that mask and creates that shield around you and literally says that is what you had to do. Very much like the war thing, the whole war dichotomy I gave you, same exact thing over here. All right, so it created that false narrative. So the thing is that now he broke that chip on the shoulder. He had that ego that was built up by the system, by the shooting of that child. His natural instinct kicked in, and that was the sledgehammer to his ego, right? But then because that was a sort of weak point to this whole thing is just fucking, the whole song is inverted. Like the whole song is completely fucking inverted. All right, it's a double inversion, so you can see it on both ways. You can play it both ways essentially. And then the thing is that the system steps in to fix him, right, with the vices, with the next thing, the next shiny distraction, or whatever else, and then it builds him up to say that okay, you might have felt like a demon, but you're an angel. Right? You were maybe just a fallen angel, you know what I mean? But everything has a double meaning, essentially, specifically in this song, right? So they literally created the person that he actually isn't, but they molded it into something so that he believes that he is something that is outside of the reality. The reality is that you murdered a child. That child had a history. That child had trauma, right? It came from somewhere. And it just so happens, in my thinking, to be that his own child came from that, essentially. So he actually was a part of the fucking problem from the very beginning, right? He was the villain in his own story, but from the very beginning, but the system is making him the hero in the story and just completely discarding the rest. Right? Because people don't need to see that, because the system needs to prevail, the system needs to win, the system needs the control, essentially. So you just create foot soldiers that believe in something outside of what they really are, and they build themselves to be greater. It's kind of like that Stanford University experiment, right, where they put a couple of people in rooms and they administered shocks to people. Now these people obviously were acting on the other side, and then there was a person that was dressed in uniform, so like very sort of formal, that was giving orders. And it's crazy how human beings just take orders from that. We've been indoctrinated to do that, so literally just keep increasing the shock rate, right? And it's kind of like, we know if we get to this voltage, it's going to kill the person on the other side, and you kind of feel guilty for a point. It's like, no, but I should. But the person in uniform is telling you, no, do it. You have to do it. It's part of the experiment. Like, we know what we're doing, right? So they sell you onto it, and they were doing it knowing that they were causing not only tremendous pain, but in some cases you were murdering people. Not really. It was just an experiment, but people just kept following it because something cleaner, something that's been sort of cleaned up clinically, right, to give you that narrative, pushed you to do that. Very much like in war, right? The same exact thing. You drop a 2,000-pound bomb on a whole bunch of people and you kill one bad person and 200 innocent people. That is collateral damage. That's cool, right? Forget about your humanity. Just don't worry about that. It's just, that's how we fight wars. How do you expect to fight wars if we're not doing stuff like that? And it kind of like it cleans it up nicely so that people don't sort of rise up against that kind of thing, essentially, which is Mad. But anyway, okay. Brilliant.
I'm so fucking proud of you, Richie, my boy. I know you're itchy, my boy, to get to work and deploy. Serve and protect, my don, in for the right reason. I know you think you've done wrong, but look at who you become. It's your first day at work, big man. Hold that head up high, my friend. Come on. We're all proud of you, Richie. I hope you get out there and smash it. I mean, what could go wrong?
The sarcasm here is wild. What could go wrong? You could shoot a child. Fucking insanity. In terms of like literally look how the actual system built him up, right? And then also the play into this is very cool. So it's kind of like your environmental thing. It's all we're all just fucking puzzle pieces in a bigger fucking system, in this bigger fucking matrix that controls us, right? It controls us through the fucking airwaves and all of it. And the crazy thing is that you see that in today's current day. It's like if you even see like the kind of mainstream media today, they don't tell you the truth, right? They literally are forever justifying and excusing stuff. And it just so happens that the things that they're justifying and excusing benefit the people in power all of the fucking time. It's crazy. They just sell you on garbage that just benefits the people in power all of the time. It's never for the fucking younger people. It's never for the actual masses ever. And they will always sell that. It's the kind of same thing if you actually look at the money that was spent. I mean, think about the fucking superpower that the United States is, and think about the money that they've printed in the past 3 fucking decades. Trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Incalculable sums of fucking money, right? That has gone to no one. Is the infrastructure better? Does it feel like trillions of dollars have been spent on the American people? Does it feel like that right now? Does it feel like those trillions of dollars make America a superpower right now outside of military? Does the American inland, the American country itself feel like a fucking multi-trillion dollar country, right? With super impressive innovation, super impressive infrastructure, super impressive services for their people. I mean, a superpower is literally, it's not just its military, it's how their people live, essentially. The superpower is like, when you become a superpower, you literally increase the standard of living for your people, right? And everything about your country, everything about your superpower and your hegemon just gets elevated. But that's not the case right now. But you get sold on the fact that we're the superpower. But how? I walk outside and I see all of this homelessness. I see all of this drug addiction. I see there's no paid family leave. I see that I have to work 2 fucking jobs in order to put food on the table. I see prices increasing and all of that. I don't feel like this is a fucking superpower. I don't feel like this is a multi-trillion dollar country. Where did that fucking money go? Peace.